Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Scream 6, number 2 would be Creed 3, number 3 would be 65, number 4 would be Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and number 5 would be Cocaine Bear. And oh man, it's the it's the magic of the Oscar season, I guess. I got all 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, and so did all of these people whose comments are being shown on the screen right now. Congratulations, everybody. Obviously, this video is a day late because I was, busy watching the Oscars and I was working beforehand, so when I got home, it was like, I have no time to do the video. I can do the notes, but I can't do the video. And then I had to do, over on 22 Tiger Dude's YouTube channel, we did Oscar predictions, and then we covered the results like right after the ceremony. So you want to go check that out, go ahead on the 22 Tiger Dude YouTube channel. So that's why this video is a little bit backed up, but I'm at least very happy to say that with the day wait when the official numbers came in, that the top 5 was still the same. So congrats everyone who got it right, especially me, and especially our number 1, which is Scream 6. This is the highest opening weekend for this franchise, higher than Scream 3's $34 million, which that's pretty good, because Scream 3, I like Scream 3, I like all the Scream movies, but I know Scream 3 is a lot of people's least favorite, and it was kind of weird for a while to have like, hey, it's it's everyone's least favorite Scream movie, it's the highest opening weekend. Now you can say it's Scream 6, this movie made $44 million, and you can say, at least right now, this movie's a little bit more well-regarded than Scream 3, so there's that going for you. So yeah, $44 million. So yeah, this is the highest opening weekend for any Scream film, higher than last year's Scream movie. That's, quite a turnaround already. It just goes to show you that there are plenty of people who are still interested in this. I am, not to always be like, I wonder what the next weekend is going to be like for so many of these movies, but I do wonder if it is a case of like, well, now that Scream is back and it's proven to be successful and there's still a fan base, the opening weekend is kind of front loaded, and then the next weekend, especially since Shazam is coming out, and then John Wick right after that, if it's gonna like drop really heavily, but you got the main numbers out of the way. We'll see how that goes, but I'm definitely, gonna predict that this movie has a strong chance of outgrossing every other Scream film in their domestic and worldwide run. Right now, it has already outgrossed Scream 4 by $6 million and needs $37 million until it outgrosses the last movie, Scream 5. Worldwide, it is already sitting at $67 million, which is $3 million away from doubling its $35 million budget. That's really great. And it needs $28 million until it outgrosses Scream 4 worldwide. So there you go. This is a really strong opening for this movie. Similar to what I've been saying about some of these other franchise ones, and what I think I'll continue to say about franchise movies for the rest of my life on this channel. It'll be interesting to see what next weekend has in store. I am predicting, or not, actually, I'm not going to predict it. I'm just wondering if it will. I mean, I'm sure it's going to have like a, hey, it's going to drop because Shazam is out, and it is going to be number 1, but I just wonder by how much, and if that will affect it in the long run as well. I think we might be in a case where it's like, hey, we have so many franchise movies, so many popular ones coming out at once that they're going to be on top of each other. Some are going to steal the spotlight for a bit, but they might carry over really well in the next couple weeks just because people will have a chance to see them at later times. Maybe that's what we got going. Let's move let's move away from speculation and move on to number 2, which is Creed 3, making $27 million, adding to a domestic total of $101 million. So it has outgrossed Rocky Balboa by $31 million and Rocky 2 by $16 million domestically, and it is $8 million behind the domestic run of the first Creed, which is pretty impressive that it's already almost at that point in its second weekend. Worldwide, it is sitting at $179 million, so it has already doubled its $75 million budget. It's going to triple it very soon. As soon as it gets to $225 million, obviously, we're going to see that happen. It has outgrossed Rocky 5 by $60 million, Rocky 3 by $54, Rocky Balboa by $23, and $6 million over the first Creed, and it needs $21 million until it outgrosses Rocky 2. This movie's still kicking ass. Like it opened with like $58 million, and it's still holding on. And if you notice, compared to its opening weekend last weekend, it had about a 53% drop according to the numbers.com, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty good hold. It's not Ant-Man and the Wasp's 70%, almost 70% drop. So, I mean, anything looks better at that point, but this in particular looks pretty pretty good. Like, yeah, it was going to have competition with Scream, but it's holding over pretty well, all things considered. And something else that was doing a little bit better than what people were originally anticipating, but, you know, okay, let's just talk about it. It's 65. It did get number 3, and it made $12 million, a little bit over early estimations. Worldwide, it already has a total of $20 million. Pretty good for like an original film with this kind of interesting, weird concept. I think I was like, when the trailer was coming out and people were like, you know, tweeting and talking about it, like, oh my god, Adam Driver's fighting dinosaurs. That's what this movie is. Holy shit. I think I was hoping for more of like a Cocaine Bear or Meth Regan or Smile kind of response where people, you know, kind of, it gave the movie a really solid opening and then it, you know, carried over. I'm not sure if 65 is going to have the chance to really breathe like that with all these other movies coming out, and I don't know if this is the kind of opening that will warrant that. And also the budget is a little bit higher than all those other movies. The budget's sitting at, according to Wikipedia, $45 million. So already they have a total of 20 million altogether, and that's, you know, 70 million away from its doubling point. So it's unless they get some really big boosts, and if domestically it can carry over, it can have like a Man Called Otto effect where, you know, all these other movies are kind of coming and going, but 65 is the one movie where it's like, hey, you never would have expected this one to kind of stand out, but here it is. Maybe that'll be the case, but I mean, and especially since Shazam is really the only kind of competition next weekend, like I don't see Inside with Willem Dafoe, you know, really doing much damage to a lot of other, so, you know, maybe it has a chance. Similar to what I said before, it's really just going to be more interesting when we see a second weekend. Number 4, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It made $7 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $198 million, so it is $8 million away from outgrossing Thor: The Dark World. It still hasn't reached it yet. It's $2 million away from finally getting past $200 million domestically. Worldwide, it is sitting at $447 million, so that is about $53 million from $500 million, which is usually kind of like the benchmark kind of thing where, you know, if it gets to at least $500 million, you know, it's in a good spot. You can kind of consider it a success. Some of these bigger movies, who knows really, but, you know, for these bigger ones where the budgets are usually like thrown at you like it's totally this, but sometimes you hear some like behind the scenes things and you're like, oh, it sounds like it would be a little bit higher, you know. So yeah, at least they've like doubled, like what they have given us is the number 200 million, and they have at least doubled that. But, you know, it should probably be a lot bigger considering Ant-Man, it still has not outgrossed Ant-Man and the Wasp yet. Worldwide, it still hasn't outgrossed the first Ant-Man. It still needs 71 million to do that. But it has at least outgrossed Shang-Chi by 15 million recently worldwide, and now is sitting behind the first Thor by 2 million. So there you go. This movie just making all kinds of ant-sized waves. Boom, tiss. Let's move on to number 5, which is Cocaine Bear, making $6 million, adding to a domestic total of $51 million. It is $133 million away from outgrossing Pitch Perfect 2, and I'm not sure why I keep reporting that number. I'm sorry. Worldwide, it is sitting at $65 million, so $8 million away from outgrossing Charlie's Angels. I think either next weekend or the weekend after, you know, that's like maybe the limit. It will finally outgross Charlie's Angels, and maybe finally it will double its $35 million budget. When this movie opened like 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, about that time, I thought for sure it would like double its budget kind of in no time, and it kind of hasn't. Maybe it's just like, you know, worldwide, the idea of like this movie Cocaine Bear isn't as appealing. It's really just kind of appealing to like a America obsessed with like meme culture. I don't know. But either way, you know, it's about to outgross Elizabeth Banks's, you know, worst film out of the 3. I don't count her segment in movie 43 because that was like a lot of people's movie, really. It was like a collection of short films that none of them really had too much involvement with. I heard like James Gunn, he directed his but then got locked out of the editing bay, I think is kind of the story behind that. It was weird stuff on that one. So I don't count that. So it's about to outgross her worst film. So at least there's that. I thought maybe it would be a bigger hit considering how strong it kind of opened, but whatever. You know what I mean? Oh man. Anyways, number 6. Now, when I wrote down the notes yesterday, this movie was at number 7, but this and number 7 actually were really close, so the official number landed it here. Number 6 is Champions. Like I predicted, this movie did not get into the top 5. Kind of a bummer. It's a sweet movie, you know, and my auditorium at least was it was a small auditorium, but it was, you know, full enough, you know, where, you know, people seemed to be enjoying it, and, you know, it was a real crowd pleaser. I'm not sure what the budget of this thing is, but it made 5.14 million this weekend. So you have a star like Woody Harrelson in there. He's kind of like, well, you have Ernie Hudson in there too. He's kind of more of a supporting player. Caitlin Olsen from It's Always Sunny. So, some money is definitely going to them. And, with these Farley brothers making movies, one of the Farleys did this one, the budget's not going to be exactly indie or like A24, 5 or 10 million, so probably a little bit more than that. I'm sure they definitely needed a lot more. So kind of a bummer, but I don't know. I guess I would recommend you go see this if you really want to. It was sweet. It's exactly the kind of movie you think it is. It's not like Farley Brothers Gross Out. I mean, there's like one really. I mean, they're I don't know. It's exactly what you kind of think, but like not horrible. It's fine. But number 7, the one that was really close, and I mean really close, Jesus Revolution, $5.13 million. So yeah, it was really in the thick of it. So I'm glad I'm waited just to see Champions at least get the nudge on old Jesus. But that adds to a domestic total of 39 million. So Champions, went above them, but Jesus Revolution has already, doubled its $15 million budget and is, about 6 million away from tripling it. So the real winner is still Jesus, after all. Moving on to number 8, which is Avatar: The Way of Water, making 2 million, adding to a domestic total of 674 million. Still 111 million away from the original. 44 million behind Top Gun Maverick for the highest grossing 2022 runs. But it has finally outgrossed Titanic by a couple $100,000. It did it. It is now the number 8 highest grossing film domestically of all time. Not just 2022, of all time. So it is 4 million away from Infinity Wars number 7. So we're going to be seeing that happen next weekend for sure. It's slowly inching up above all these other ones. Worldwide, it is sitting at 2,293,000,000, which is 630 million from the original film and 501 million from Endgame's number 2 for the all-time worldwide run. So worldwide, still not making a lot of progress, and domestically, it's slowing down there too. But at least it's still crawling up just enough. It's still in that like sweet spot where it can outgross some of these other films domestically, and that's really exciting. I don't think it'll get to Top Gun, but this is pretty fun, to say the least. It's still pretty fun to see Avatar do this. Number 9 is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, making 1.7 million, adding to a domestic total of $179 million. It is 1 million away from outgrossing Madagascar: Escape to Africa. A really great achievement when that happens, Worldwide, it is sitting at 461 million, so 30 million behind Shrek, 93 million behind the first Puss in Boots. Aside from the domestic numbers that I just said, worldwide it's kind of in a similar spot with Avatar. Obviously not to the great extent that Avatar needs to outgrow some of these other movies, but kind of in a similar spot where, it's at the bottom of the list now. It's about to exit the top 10, and, you have these other films that it could outgross, but it's just, it's not making just nearly enough. But, it's still pretty impressive, to say the least. I think there's still like, obviously it's not as, vast an opinion, but I still think there are some people out there who have like a misrepresentation of like how this movie did. Like some people just still think back to like that initial opening and are like, oh, well, obviously it just went on to flop, but it's really great. But it's like, no, like word of mouth helped it. It's actually done a lot better now. You know what I mean? You don't need to keep calling this movie a flop. Yeah, that's about it. I have nothing else to add to this other than good job, Puss in Boots. Oh, and it's also made 11 million over the 450 million point, which is 5 times its $90 million budget, which is pretty good. If it got to 540, that would be 6 times. And I don't think we'll see that happen, but this is still pretty good, to say the least. 5 times that $90 million budget. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. It made 1.2 million, adding to a domestic total of $5 million. So yeah, it's outgrossed Rock'n'Rolla by a couple 100,000 for Guy Ritchie, but it's still 22 million behind Wrath of Man, which, that's really saying something to release a movie now and have it flop worse than a movie that came out still in like 2021 pandemic days. Worldwide, it is now sitting at 26 million and has still not outgrossed Rock'n'Rolla there. It needs 1 million to do so. Oh well, nice knowing you, Operation Fortune. I hope Hugh Grant has better success with Dungeons and Dragons in a couple weeks. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I'm going with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Number 2, Scream 6. Number 3, Creed 3. Number 4, 65. And number 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.